Hey NetSuite listeners, thanks for tuning in to the NetSuite podcast. I'm Ian McCue, a senior content marketing manager at NetSuite and one of the co-hosts of this podcast. Joining us today is Lionel CIO Rick Gemereth. If any of our listeners are fans of model trains, Lionel is a very familiar name. For more than 120 years, Lionel has manufactured miniature replicas of famous trains as well as tracks, transformers, and other accessories. Rick shares how he ended up at Lionel after it acquired the diecast car division of Motorsports Authentics in 2010. He walks through Lionel's history and explains how its trains have evolved over the years. That includes innovations like the ability to control trains with a smartphone and by voice. After Lionel purchased the diecast portion of the business from Motorsports Authentics, Rick had one clear priority as the IT department head: find an ERP system that could support both divisions. He first details the very outdated system Lionel was on for decades and the challenges it presented. The CIO also shares tips on how he overcame internal resistance to replacing a system employees knew well. Rick then explains why the manufacturer opted for a cloud solution and selected NetSuite back in 2010. He gets into how NetSuite OneWorld simplified financial management and reporting for Lionel's two subsidiaries, and how the company leveraged NetSuite partners to automate further. As Lionel became an omnichannel business, Rick walks through why the company quickly replaced Magento with SuiteCommerce Advanced to manage its 3 e-commerce sites. He also expands on how NetSuite's reporting capabilities help the business make smarter decisions and continue to cut costs. Rick wraps up by shedding light on Lionel's strategy to build lasting relationships with kids, touching on how NetSuite can help the organization achieve those goals. Stay tuned, all that and more is coming up next.
You're listening to the NetSuite podcast, where we discuss what's happening within NetSuite, why we're doing it, and where we're heading in the future. We'll dive into the details about the software and the people at NetSuite who are behind all the moving parts. We'll also feature customer growth stories, discussing the ups and downs of running a company and how one integrated system can help your business continue to scale.
So Rick, Lionel is a company that's been around for more than 120 years now. Could you just tell us a little bit more about what the company does and what's kind of given it so much staying power to still be here today, 120 years later?
Sure, Ian, and actually in 2025, we'll be 125 years old, so we're really excited about that and looking forward to it, and we'll be doing some special things for that coming up. But so, Lionel, by brand name, hopefully a lot of people recognize it. We are the makers of the trains that the people have as toys and have as collectible items. And then our second line of business for Lionel is also making the replicas of die-cast NASCAR cars that run the races for NASCAR. So those are our two primary lines of business.
And you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier before we got on the mic here, but could you tell me a little bit about kind of each of those two sides of the business, how they kind of contribute, how maybe it came to be that a train company and a die-cast car company came together?
Sure. So I actually was part of a company called Motorsports Authentics that sold die-cast cars and apparel and other souvenirs for NASCAR. In 2010, NASCAR, the owners of Motorsports Authentics, decided they wanted to divest themselves of the business, so they looked to sell that piece. Lionel came in and bought the die-cast portion of the business from Motorsports Authentics. At that time, Lionel was only making trains, and Lionel offered 21 of us an opportunity to come to Lionel and help run the diecast racing business for Lionel, and so 21 of us moved over. I was offered the opportunity to lead the IT department, and the first challenge that I was presented with from the CEO was find an ERP that could run both sides of the company, the diecast racing and the train business, under one umbrella, and so we can unify that and simplify it and get the company moving forward.
From Lionel's perspective, why did it kind of make sense to acquire that diecast business? Was it just similarities kind of between the train collectibles, if you will, and the car collectibles?
It's a great question. And little known is that actually the factory, our manufacturing is done in China. The factory that was manufacturing the die-cast cars for NASCAR replicas and the factory that was manufacturing the trains, one and the same.
Interesting. So made all the sense in the world, I guess.
Yes, it was an easy sense that Lionel already had a relationship with the factory that was doing it. So it was an easy transition from that perspective.
Yeah, definitely. And then, as we said, the business has been around a long time. The second half of its existence, a little bit more difficult moments, I would say. But how has the company kind of bounced back from those, and how do you think that's impacted the business we see today as Lionel?
Well, Lionel did have some difficult times. At one point in time, it was a publicly held company and publicly traded. Now it's privately held. And so as they went through the difficult times, many years ago, it was acquired and actually changed hands several times in the private market. But now the focus really is on driving the brand and sustaining it and maintaining it. Peoples are a passionate set of collectors. We make the trains that go around your Christmas tree, and a lot of kids love those. A lot of us grew up with that, but then there are also a lot of passionate collectors that like to buy high-priced replicas of big engines that drive around the country, and so we're focused on, again, trying to extend the brand in the younger generation. We did a demographic study a handful of years ago that found out that kids really still love trains. Young kids love trains. But now in today's age, by the time they get a little bit older and get handed a cell phone or a tablet or whatever, then the train kind of loses some of its appeal to the younger generation. So our challenge is, how do we extend that appeal? How do we keep the younger kids interested, involved in the product, and so when they grow up, they want to do the same thing for their kids. And so we've got a great set of engineers that worked on now. You can control a train with your phone, with your voice, and so we're continuing to come up with new advancements in technology to extend the brand. So that's obviously important to us.
And Rick, I think you've been with Lionel for about 12 years now. How has the company kind of evolved, changed, and succeeded as well over that period that you've been with them?
Yeah, and again, I think the focus has changed more on what can we do to bring the younger generation aboard and keep them. And so we got great marketing guys that are coming up with new programs all the time to extend our sales. We've got great relationships with licensing relationships with Disney and Warner Brothers stuff. We have the Polar Express train, which is our number one seller, but those kind of things, they keep the company moving. So and we're always trying to advance new product, new ideas. And so I think there's been a lot of focus on controlling our costs and driving our revenue and getting the balance of that and the better part of that, obviously, and becoming more and more profitable.
You mentioned, I think, some key things there in terms of what's made the business successful, but are there any things you feel like you've done recently that have kind of helped the business continue to be relevant, continue to succeed, and make sure that it doesn't kind of become a relic of the past?
Well, again, I'll mention, how we've involved using a cell phone now to drive a train or voice controlled. And we've got some more things on the drawing board similar to that. And, those kind of advances with train technology, because in the old day, you had a transformer, you plugged it in, you connected the track, you put the train on it, and you turn the knob on the transformer to speed it up or slow it down. And now you can do that without having a transformer or controlling it with a transformer. You still have the power pack that powers the train. So it's those kind of things. We have also done things. The standard track used to be a 3-rail track, if you've been around trains long enough. Now it's not a 3-rail track anymore, but we also light the track up in some instances when a train goes over it. So it's some cool things like that just appeals to a lot of people.
And so you touched on all the things trains can do now that might kind of come as a surprise to someone that hasn't played with them in a while, with the voice control, with the smartphone app. How do you and how does Lionel as a company kind of keep up with all this stuff? I mean, consumer technology, evolves very, very quickly. How do you guys kind of stay on top of things and make sure you're able to support these trends with your trains?
Well, as I said, we've got a great set of engineers that are building these things, and they're designing it and staying up with what's happening in the tech world. And all the social media that's out there now. We drive a lot of stuff through social media, so people are exposed to it. I can't speak highly enough of our engineering department and how they're doing it and programming chips. And it would be interesting, or it is interesting, to see how they get that done and what's involved with that. But we're doing our own development that way.
As CIO, obviously you're involved with kind of the internal systems the business runs on. Do you also have some input in the technological direction of the products and working with the teams on that side of the business?
I do not. I stay more focused on the processes on our ERP, but, those engineers are a heck of a lot smarter than I am, so those guys do a great job.
Do you think that that's brought some challenges for the business, just needing to adapt to all these different technologies and stuff? And has it made the business maybe have to reconsider its priorities or, what it needs to focus on when it thinks about the future?
Good question. There are challenges with it. As an example, when I'll tell you guys a story, when we first went to driving a train via your phone, well, there's many versions of phone out there. You got Apple and you got all the other versions that, and then different ages of them. And so at one point, I think we were trying to make the application work on too many different types of cell phones, and we killed it because there's so many out there that have a different variation on the OS of the phone or whatever it may be that, we finally said, okay, guys, here are the phones that this is going to operate on, and we're not going to go below this level or whatever. So that is an ongoing challenge because consumers, some of them hang on to their phones for a very long time, and the present day application may not be compatible with older technology.
Yeah, I think less is more sometimes, for sure, with things like that. So you're obviously CIO, Rick. When you stepped into that role with Lionel, like we said, about 12 years ago, what were kind of some of your initial priorities for the business? I think you mentioned earlier in the podcast ERP, but where did you want to take things when you first got this job?
Well, it really was unifying two separate companies. As I mentioned, Lionel had been around for a long time and acquired the diecast business, NASCAR diecast business. And so now we had two separate companies, and we needed to find one system that which we could drive both of the subsidiaries on divisions on, so that we could unify our operating platform and unify the processes and unify the data analysis and everything else. So really the first challenge the CEO of Lionel at the time gave me was find us an ERP that we can run our business on. And so that was the first thing I had to do. And it was an interesting challenge in that obviously Lionel had an old ERP that had been with them for a very long time, and the people that used it knew it very well. And with anything that involves change, there's always challenges. So, moving to an ERP, to a new ERP was challenging from the standpoint that the Lionel team understood it needed to be done, but it was different. And it was, the training we had to provide. And us ourselves, we didn't know NetSuite's ERP. We, being the racing team, didn't know NetSuite's ERP either. So we all had to learn, all had to define how the processes were going to work, are working now inside of NetSuite, and then just get everybody comfortable for it. And again, it's change, right? There's always resistance to change, no matter how little, how big, how much better it's going to make things. It's different.
Did you find any ways to kind of overcome that resistance that were particularly effective? Did you do any initiatives maybe with fellow executives to try to get that buy-in that we often hear about when you're changing systems?
It's a great thing, the buy-in. One of the benefits was I had the backing of the CEO because he wanted it to get done. So not that I had to sell senior management on it. It was, the end user community. The people that were really using the system needed to be sold on it. And it just took time, if water wears away rock. And so it was a matter of just being consistent with it. And we actually spent a lot of time understanding how they operated. So, we involved them in the process definition process so that they had input into it, and that was part of their buy-in. They were helping define it.
You mentioned Lionel was running on a really old ERP system at the time. Could you provide any more detail there on what you were using, what it looked like from the user experience, people that actually had to interact with the ERP system, and where it was falling short?
Well, it was an old AS400 system, and this is 2010. An AS400, IBM AS400 systems were great in their day, but, it had lived beyond its prime, and the name of the application was called BPIX, and it was just an old manufacturing system that printed paper reports and had the big CRT cathode ray tube devices hung to it that people were using. So it was just antiquated and needed to be moved out and moved on.
You mentioned printed out reports, but what were the things that you felt like were holding the business back about the system? Like what did you see as we really need these things to be better in our new system?
Newer technology had a lot more functionality. So, it was something that benefited the company entirely because of just advancements in technology, number one. Number two is the old AS400 system was written in programming language called RPG. Many people out there, unless you've been in IT, won't know what that is, but those were the days that when you wanted a data report or a data analysis, you had to go to IT and say, hey, can you spin me up a sales report from last month's sales? And so IT could be seen as a bottleneck at that point in time. Moving into NetSuite, moving into new generation stuff, all of those data elements are now serviceable to each individual, so they don't need to come to IT to get a report on sales after we train them how to do that so they can do their own data analytics. We guide them because one of the beauties of and challenges, curses of being able to generate reports by everybody is you can get different reports for the same end thing. So as an example, Ian, you could spin up a sales report that you thought was right, and it wouldn't match the sales report that I spun up number-wise, because I may have included sales tax in my total sales, and you may not have included sales tax, and then you're going, well, how come if we're both looking at a report for last month's sales, Ian's number's different from Rick's? So that's how everybody's gotten used to that, and as part of the training transition period, but those are the things, you get multiple versions of the truth.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. And Rick, I know you led this effort to implement NetSuite ERP. Going back to kind of that selection process, what do you remember about why NetSuite was the right choice for Lionel? What put it above some of the other systems you looked at?
A couple things. Even back in 2010, NetSuite was in the cloud, and that was before it wasn't in vogue. And we talked about that. And it takes away a lot of things, having your data center on premise or having it outsourced to somewhere else, having your ERP just taken care of by somebody else in the cloud. So, we took a chance, and it certainly paid off long run for us, because now everybody's either in the cloud or getting to the cloud. That was number one. Number two, I did a quick analysis of a couple of competitors' products, and all three of the pricing for the products were roughly the same. It wasn't like one was greatly more expensive or one was a heck of a lot cheaper. They were all in the ballpark. So that was the second point. And the third point is we in the NASCAR business at Motorsports Authentics have been using NetSuite's ecommerce platform. And so we had a little bit of knowledge of NetSuite that certainly helped us.
How did 6 out of the top 7 best-performing tech stocks gain visibility and control over financials, inventory, planning, and budgeting with NetSuite by Oracle? Answers at netsuite.com/code. netsuite.com/code.
One of those systems that I believe you looked at was Microsoft and Microsoft Dynamics. Do you remember what maybe wasn't as appealing or didn't make that solution as strong of a fit for Lionel as NetSuite did?
I think it came down to our familiarity, albeit it was small, but we could spell NetSuite, so to speak. But again, they were all basically the same, and I kind of like NetSuite's again being in the cloud there at that time.
So, from now to 2010, obviously the business has changed a lot, grown a lot, as we've kind of said. But I just want to kind of talk through some of the modules you guys are using and what you've seen with those, the results you've seen with those. So on the finance side, you have NetSuite OneWorld. We often see that used for either international or multi-subsidiary businesses. Sometimes, obviously, they might be both. How is that module, would you say, made kind of financial management and accounting easier for Lionel?
So in your hit the nail on the head, and we have two subsidiaries. We had the train business and the racing business, racing diecast business. So we needed to treat them as separate operating entities so we could track the profitability of each. And so OneWorld allows us to assign sales and expenses based on the product lines, which then in turn shows us, who's making money, who's not making money, or where we need to focus our attention more on. So that's been, obviously that was key to us. And the other part is you can roll out the financial reporting into a single statement as well. So we can run a financial statement for the train side, we can run a financial statement for the racing side, and then we can get a consolidated financial statement.
Is that something you've been using the whole time you've been with NetSuite ERP, or was that added later down the line?
Nope. from day one. That was, again, another reason why we went that way, because we needed to, and we still need to obviously understand profitability of each product.
And then wanted to turn next to inventory management, obviously another kind of key part of any ERP system, and certainly NetSuite ERP. How do you think that system has helped when it comes to inventory management, whether it's things like efficiency or making sure you have the right supply for where demand is, or maybe something else?
Another thing I really like about NetSuite is they have many trading partners that have expanded application capabilities that are integrated into NetSuite. It's super, and we have relationships with many of them, and I'll talk about several. But on the shipping side, we use a company called RF Smart that's integrated in NetSuite and gives us expanded capabilities on mobile scanning devices on picking and shipping orders, and it's been a great product. We use a company called Avalara on taxation. That Avalara, that those people are a heck of a lot smarter than we are about taxes and jurisdictional taxes and tax rate changes and all the crazy things that goes on with taxes, and they make sure we're compliant with all of the tax rates that are needing to be applied and updated over the years. And just a handful of years ago, when the country started requiring taxes on internet purchases, we were all set to go with it, and a lot of companies had challenges with how we're going to do this. It was all part of Avalara's bread and butter, and so we rolled right into that, and different and crazy thresholds by state, and when you have to start paying or not have to pay taxes on internet purchases. That's another one. We use a company called Mineral Tree. It automates our accounts payable, and so it's greatly helped the accounting department. We just have implemented this week something that automates our accounts receivable process through HighRadius, and it's a cash app when we get payments in from our customers, and how it applies them to the open invoices. Again, simplifying processes, reducing manual efforts and time inside of our accounting department, our AP and AR departments. So it's just the wonderful number of partners that NetSuite has that allows you to focus on, in the term I've heard today many times, and I've been using it for a long time, growing your business. Let us focus on running our business. Let people that are a lot smarter than we are on those specific aspects keep us where we need to be.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart strategy, and something, sometimes people try to do too much, build homegrown this, homegrown that, and I think often they just end up shooting themselves in the foot and spending a lot of time and money on just trying to develop it. Do you kind of, or maybe over the years, have you gotten some positive feedback from employees, whether it's someone in the warehouse or someone on the finance team, about, hey, this is so much easier or faster or better than it was before now that we have these tools at our disposal?
We do. We continue to always seek how do we improve our processes, and most of that improvement comes around the technology that's driving them. And again, another wonderful piece I like about NetSuite, you can customize their product to meet your business needs. You get an out-of-the-box kind of setup with NetSuite with lots of capabilities, but everybody's business operates a little differently, and so us being able to customize NetSuite to do some things for us eases our processes. And then in time, we'll have the warehouse team, that's doing all the shipping and receiving and all the product, and say, this has gotten better, faster, easier. But we've heard that in many areas. And again, it's because of the capability of NetSuite to allow us to do that, and then also allowing people to spin up their own data analytics reports. They can get an idea on how things are going compared to where we were.
And so today, Lionel obviously sells through its own website. I know you guys have a lot of third-party, retailers that you work with, a lot of different channels going on. Is e-commerce, has that become a significant part of the business for Lionel?
It has. We've got 3 websites that we do our own e-commerce on. We also do the fulfilling of e-commerce orders for some major names such as Amazon and Walmart, that you can call it e-commerce, you can call it omnichannel. We were omnichannel when that term was just born, but yeah, so it is significant when we roll all those numbers in.
And how has the company kind of adjusted to that? You mentioned right there omnichannel. It's been the kind of the talk of the town in retail for a number of years now, but how did you handle that shift? How were you able to successfully go from, I imagine, only really selling to retailers to selling online, and then selling through these marketplaces like Amazon as well?
Actually, that was almost our footprint from day one, at least from when I joined. So, we had an e-com site. We were selling in bulk to mass retailers. We were fulfilling on the e-commerce side for mass retailers. We have distributors and wholesalers that we send product to. And then 3 years ago, we opened up a retail store. So a single retail store, but like I said, we've been omnichannel for a long time. And one of the things that, again, another trading partner that I didn't mention earlier, SPS Commerce, they do all our EDI transaction processing. And so for those people that know, big companies require you to exchange the sales order, purchase order from them, create an advanced ship notice back to them, and then the invoice all electronically. And NetSuite integrates with or SPS integrates with NetSuite to make those transactions happen. As an example, in 2021, we processed over 80,000 documents through SPS, just the volume of activity that we've got going on via EDI.
And kind of on the topic of e-commerce, I know you use SuiteCommerce Advanced as well and have for quite a while. I believe Lionel was on Magento before. Where was that system kind of falling short, and then what made SuiteCommerce the right fit?
So the history behind that, we actually, when we created the company in 2010, we went to NetSuite's e-commerce platform at that point in time, and it was called behind the scenes called Site Builder. And Site Builder was an older style method of creating websites. As we were on it for a couple of 3 years, we realized that Site Builder was not capable of making some of the advances that we wanted to do in our e-commerce platform. And so we actually did move to Magento. We were on Magento and we had our challenges because now we've got to feed the data back from Magento back into NetSuite so that we have one record of the truth of everything. And this is 2013-ish, and there wasn't an easy path to transfer data back and forth. So we kind of built our own pipeline to do that, which was less than successful. That was a challenge for us because now if the pipeline broke, we had to figure out where the data fell apart and recreate it. And interesting part of that, Magento, world-class e-com side. It certainly is a very good website, but now we have a call center that were taking calls from customers, and now they had to understand NetSuite and Magento to be able to talk to a customer. So now the technology training just had to be increased to so that our team understood a second platform. But at that point in time, NetSuite came out with their new e-commerce platform offering SuiteCommerce Advanced. And we took a look at, we got a demo of it, took a look at it and said, wow, this is doing all the things we wanted to do from a marketing standpoint, from a customer interface standpoint. And we made the conversion back from Magento back over into NetSuite under SuiteCommerce Advanced. And it's been working very well for us. We're very happy with SuiteCommerce Advanced.
What were the biggest, maybe immediate benefits you saw when you went back to SuiteCommerce Advanced? Was it just not having to worry about data kind of flowing from one system to the other?
It was, and it was significant. One of the other challenges we had was the way that Magento applied taxes was a little different than the way NetSuite applied taxes. One was at the line level, one was at the cart level. And so there were times when the taxes didn't balance out between the two transactions, the one that was generated in Magento and the one that was generated copied back over to NetSuite. And so, there's some taxation issues, just the different way the systems were handling the process. And so those are the kind of, and again, having to train more people on how to operate Magento or answer customers' questions. Hey, I'm on your website in Magento, and I'm trying to do this, and so now we've got to know both. When we converted back, it certainly simplified things, and I love having everything under one platform because it makes it a lot easier. We only need to know one level of technology from a reporting standpoint. Everybody can get to it, so that simplifies and expedites the process.
One other piece I wanted to ask about on the NetSuite side is Learning Cloud Support or LCS. What kind of value have you guys seen with that? Has it helped you maybe get more out of NetSuite, or has it helped ramp up new people that are new to NetSuite on how to use the system?
The answer is yes. And it actually has. As we, just like every other company, experience turnover. And so, the training we're getting from NetSuite has helped us speed up the transition. A new employee, right, doesn't know NetSuite, they have an IT background, but doesn't know NetSuite, and then, we can certainly speed the transition up from them stepping aboard to becoming a productive individual. And then also, other training capabilities for non-IT people that we use through that.
Have you found any use or value in it kind of being like a continued learning tool after people get a little bit familiar with the system to maybe add to their capabilities?
Yeah, we haven't gone down that path yet, and that's probably a really good suggestion. Our goal is just bringing people up to speed as quickly as possible.
So one of the big reasons, obviously, people get an ERP system or move to a new ERP system is reporting, which we already talked about a little bit, but how would you say NetSuite's reporting capabilities kind of help employees across various departments, various levels in your business, and ultimately just kind of do their jobs better?
Well, again, with a little bit of training, you don't need to be an IT person now to generate reports out of NetSuite. And so it makes them self-service, or gives them self-service capabilities, and they don't need to come to IT, unless they have a question about how to do something. So, they have near real-time access to the data they're looking for.
And on the kind of selling side of the business, can it help Lionel evaluate how different items are performing and maybe what you need to push more, what you need to pull back on, or maybe think about redoing? How does it help you make some of those decisions?
Certainly, and that's another one of the benefits, again, of the easy access of data analytics inside there to show us what product is moving, what product's slow moving, and what do we need to do if we need to run some kind of promotional coupon or whatever it may be to try to push product out the door. So it helps us identify our inventory levels and at what time do we reorder product, and making sure we've got it on hand when we need it.
And just digging into the reporting side a little bit more, recently we've been hearing a lot of CFOs, I know you're a CIO, but a lot of CFOs being asked to find ways to cut costs. We need to boost profitability, all those types of things. How do you think NetSuite can help you deliver on some of those things as they potentially become a priority down the road if we need to focus on our cash flow or profitability? How can NetSuite help with that?
Well, and we have used NetSuite for that, and it's some of the trading partners that have expanded capabilities, such as automating our AP or automating our AR pieces that help us reduce costs, because it removes a lot of the manual effort and speeds it up. So time frames are reduced up to the point where people can do other things, or if somebody leaves, we may not need to replace them. So.
And Rick, I imagine over the course of your career, you've implemented a number of systems, worked with a number of different systems. To you, what do you think makes NetSuite better than some of those other systems you've worked with in other stops in your career?
It's some of maybe timing, because technology is so much more advanced now. Putting in systems isn't something you do every other year, and that's once or twice.
You hope not to.
You're right. It doesn't happen often, and so, which is a good thing, because the whole transition is, and companies get used to how things work, unless there's a serious need for it. But and I guess the key point is advancements in NetSuite. NetSuite does upgrades to its product twice a year. So NetSuite continues also to be creative in how to advance the productivity that you may have by owning the product, because they do releases twice a year that brings new capabilities out that you get as just being part of the program.
Great. And as we start to wrap up here, I wanted to move back to Lionel and just kind of the business itself. What do you think Lionel's strategy looks like to ensure its products can, like you talked about at the beginning, kind of capture the interest of a new generation of consumers?
Yeah, again, our goal is to continue extending the brand in the younger generation. A lot of us have trains because our fathers had trains, and so we're trying to promote that and get that to be a sticking point that as young people grow up today and then have their own families, that is something they look back on fondly and want to provide that kind of experience to their kids. And so that's the biggest part of it, in extending with technology as best we can, so that as technology advances, so do the trains capabilities, or the ability to interact with the trains is extended.
And how do you think NetSuite can kind of support you as you continue to, change and evolve and meet these new trends, whatever they might be, since some I feel like we don't even know yet?
Well, if NetSuite would come out and buy trains for all their employees, that would be a great help to us. Just kidding. The at NetSuite's features and functionalities and their continued advancements to help us continue to improve. So that's key to us as NetSuite is advancing. We're able to use those things to improve our processes, and as we said earlier, reduce costs and increase profitability. So it's the back end system. The ERP is what's driving the business.
All right, well, great stuff, Rick. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ian.
I'm really impressed by how this century-old brand is finding ways to reinvent itself so model trains remain popular. Technology, both in the products it sells and internally to run its business better, is really central to that effort at Lionel. There's certainly more competition than ever before to capture the attention of today's kids, and Lionel's come up with some creative ways to reach them. Props to them for tackling that challenge head on. Thanks so much to Rick for joining us on this episode of the podcast. I also want to extend another thank you to our editing crew over at Lampstand and, as always, all of you for tuning in. If you want more episodes just like this one, make sure you subscribe to our channel and give us a rating and review. Thanks so much, and we'll talk soon.
You just listened to the NetSuite podcast. Be sure to tune in every week with more NetSuite developments, stories, and insights into the benefits of one integrated system to help you run your business.